We are officially live on Facebook. Welcome, Gnome. Welcome, Facebook world. Welcome, all those individuals out there watching what's going on. We're here together holding space to discuss and ruminate on the results that we're seeing live. Want to welcome everyone. Artemis, thank you so much for putting on this show, Epic Democracy. And feel free, anyone, to share in the comments your questions, your feedback, ideas. This is a popcorn style conversation. Feel free to also thumbs up, heart, and engage. Unmute yourself when you're ready.
And Sydney, would you introduce yourself as the moderator who are and
conversation? Absolutely. Absolutely. My name is Syd, and I am the founder of the Creative Zone, which was an artist residency and yoga wellness studio in Boston, Chinatown. Now it is a hub for online events, and we also do intimate retreats at retreat centers and farms. But the idea is that we're coming together as one, celebrating each other's gifts and how we're using those gifts to serve humanity at large. And a lot of what I do is focused on working with nature, celebrating nature, getting in touch with her, and in doing so, getting deeper connected to ourselves and then to everyone at large. So for me, my reason for being involved in Artemis's Epic Democracy podcast and YouTube channel is to moderate, to help you guys get your questions answered, to help host and facilitate and hold space for democracy, for democratic conversation. So thank you so much. And feel free, anyone else, to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Gwen. I'm back again tonight for host. And I'm just coming in. I'm in the middle of picking a kid up. So in a little while, I'm going to leave for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back.
Awesome.
I'm really in alignment with what you're doing, Sydney. I mean, that's really what it is for me. I do many things, being a musician and a visual artist and a dancer, and very involved in drumming communities, and a lot of my work has had to do with like just my personal work, but all in my past life has revolved around working with parents who have experienced trauma, who also have children who have experienced trauma, and how to work through that in terms like elements of trauma and how trauma can get locked in the body, how to work that out and through, different approaches in trauma in terms of like using gardening and planting and eating healthfully, and food security, where it comes from, where it's rooted in within the home, and then how that extends outwards, how that can impact on people's capacity to see themselves as worthy enough to even succeed in life at all. So I have a lot of connections with people who have experienced childhood trauma. They're my friends. They're with the community and beyond. And I also have been in the study of astrology since I was 12 years old, 15. And I used that in the beginning to understand myself. When I'm a clairvoyant, as a child, would have precognizant dreams and messages and try to tell everybody what was going to happen, and we would live and it would happen. So that's how I was led to astrology, because to me it was more of a science than something more mystical than that. I was 15, I had a death experience, and that really changed the course of my life. and my reason for living and my reason why I'm here, and rooted the earth. So, yeah.
Oh, Gwen, thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm Giselle. Artemis invited me over. Well, he actually invited Lorenzo over, and I was like, no, I'm so to this. I'm a organizer. I have ran for office. I know what it takes to run a campaign. That really wants to change a community. Was to take loss. I was president of Neighbor to Neighbor when Trump won that year. Neighbor is a public organization out of Boston. They had 4 chapters: Worcester, Springfield, Holyoke, and Lynn. And at the time, I was president to deliver a speech to people on, we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to push. And we're here 4 years later with a pandemic. Like, everything could have imagined that went wrong. So when Artemis, started talking about this podcast, I'm like, oh, we have to talk every part of it. Our lives drastically changed from 4 years ago. And so today, I'm here to be leaving at 7 p.m. We're going to be hosting Outside the Lines with Lorenzo Gaines, which is a sports show in the Pioneer Valley that talk everything and all. We're going to be covering the election. We're actually going to reflect in the last 4 years of what happened. We need to talk about what brought us to this moment, looking in the future, and still the work that needs to be done. Even though we might have a victory with Biden, or we might have a victory with Trump, it is still done. And I think with unity and love and meeting people on the heart, we can get that work accomplished.
My name is Noam Sender. I'm a longtime friend of Artemis. I'm here tonight to among all the difficulty and the challenges that we have in hope. I'm a musician and a teacher. Each month I run drum circles when we used to be together. It's very hard to do on Zoom now. And lately, just for my life, I've become an activist, a very local activist. I live in Waltham. And I've done all kinds of work to support candidates, but I never actually knocked on doors and canvassed. So I've been canvassing, and we got a local person, a brother elected who is a very young man, 26 years old, and really walked on. It's a pleasure to be here to help people with homelessness and with also keeping a roof overhead. It's very specific work, just around this very physical neighborhood where I live. I think that it is just a wonderful opportunity to be together with people of like-mind and heart, artists and philosophers, scholars and conveners of groups. And Artemis, thank you for inviting me, and I'm so pleased to be here. And I hope that we will have a peaceful transition. That is what I'm hoping for, but I have no idea. That is what's so unusual this time. And I've lived through a couple of wars in Israel, growing up as a child. But I never felt my whole life that we are just in such that our democracy and that our way of life and our beliefs are actually in danger. And anyway, For music, my job is to bring joy and upliftment. And I used to do that in many synagogues around the Boston area, which are now. It's a new time, but here we are I do a lot of things on Zoom in Artemis. I don't know Bitcoins of love. This is about, but I'd actually like to learn about the current conversion and all that later on tonight or in the near future. So,
beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful. I love I'm so glad you're this. You are like my spiritual brother, like Patrick Crowley. And I think we need to put together a men's circle from this, where we men and become the man they want to be and have mentors. You know, we have such a crisis of men in our society. So we should talk about that.
Yes.
Who else would like to introduce themselves? Patrick.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here with my daughter, Toriel. Here she is, running away. And I'm so good to be here with all of you. Here's a beautiful pink flower. That's Toriel's pink flower, she just told me. And yeah, it's just so important to share together on such a momentous night. I hope we win. And I hope if we do win that it is a peaceful transition, as Noam said. And yeah, I'm excited to just hear anyone's wisdom and love and be together. And I'm sure more will be joining us tonight as we go through this. I see the Doug Tooley from a friend from Hitcher and us, and one of the other wonderful, Joseph is here, and all sorts of other wonderful people. So it'll be a great evening together.
Thank you, Patrick. Do you want to mention any note about the work you do for building human connection?
Sorry, my daughter is biting me in my legs. I really am a dancer, but many people know me as a body worker as well. I really do my body work to dance, but I'm very involved in the body and how do we find ourselves very deeply through the body, and how do we find peace, how do we find empathy, action. And I've been very involved in this international dance form called contact improvisation my whole life, really, my whole adult life. And it's a wonderful way to connect, and I've connected with Noam quite a bit through music and movement and massage, all sorts of, and yeah, I just believe in the power of being deeply in ourselves and how that can bring us to wisdom.
Thank you. Anyone else interested in introducing themselves or sharing why they were inspired to join us this evening? Also, feel free to just type in the chat if you would prefer to stay off video and muted.
Say hi. I'm Brenda Assis, and longtime friend of Artemis. Joining everyone the last couple of nights. Sorry to have missed the first evening, and we're just really out of myself. He can speak for himself. He has a voice, but we're just really happy to connect with kindred spirits and connect in love, because we need a lot of that right now. And I'm a little anxious about this, but I had a 2.5-hour nap after a 2-mile walk, almost 2 miles. So I just woke up. I'm ready. And we're just really happy to be here. And we invited a friend, Phyllis Eben, who will show up and they pop in and times. We have another gathering that we're supposed to be doing with Ed Leckler, if anybody knows Ed, in Brookline. Anyway, and
I'm Andy Lecomte, and I just woke up too. I'm retired.
we're
But,
both retired.
I love with loving friends during this election time. It's such a it might not be a traumatic time for our country. It might be a invigorating flush, you know, that we find new friends in this struggle together, and then we're really ready to move forward in love to create a better future. So I'm glad to be here.
And if I could just say one last thing, one of the reasons to many others is that I want us to win tonight is Andy wants to go to Portugal if we don't win. And either that or Burlington, Vermont, as close as we can get. But we live in Weston, and I've lived here for 30 years, and Chicago. But our daughter lives in Tucson, so Tucson to Portugal is a long way, 7-hour time difference. And my son lives here, but so I like to stay in the country. And although I think Portugal will be wonderful,
Yeah.
we'll visit there, but I want to stay here.
I think first, friends, I'm much more likely to stay no matter what happens, because it's just really worthwhile to be with you guys.
Yeah, and Andy's good candidate for your men's group, even though you said young men.
But wait a minute, if you go to Portugal, we all want to come with you.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
We were supposed to go to March. We were going for 3 weeks to check it out because he was so bummed out about the politics. But
Well,
anyway,
I'll find a nice place for co-hiking. We can all get together and be happy.
yeah. Thank you, people.
And
Everybody.
self-sustaining.
Yeah, well,
Not-
we're vegan, and we eat plants. We only eat plants pretty much, so we're totally in favor of self-sustaining.
Oh,
I wanted to just emphasize two things I didn't mention earlier. One that Gwen meant, going to nature. I'm an outdoor swimmer. I go to Walton Pond almost every day. Now beginning a transition where I'm excited because it's getting colder. I'm still swimming, but I think soon I'll just be walking in forests, which I make sure to spend time in nature every day, to harmonize, reboot, reclaim my true self. That's one thing. The other, which I talked in an earlier evening, was that I believe that change begins with ourselves. And when we actually make peace with our own desperate parts and our brokenness, not some pride, but something that we, just like the Katsugi's art of painting in gold the broken vessel of in clay Japanese, do that to say that something that lost, that broke, that did not lose its value, or transparent and with ourselves. We can create a place that joins together with other people with love. And if community out of individuals that love themselves, not in a narcissistic way, but in a evolved way, is a community that can actually inspire other communities. And, and this is one of the reasons I'm here. For many, many years I've known Artemis and his quest for truth and transparency and love. And he's not ashamed about saying that just out there while, he does all these incredible trips and invites. We've had some quite impressive speakers during this last few days. And for me, I mean, simply, I know nature. I know being in water and what it means that my water and the water that I swim in combine. And I feel small and nature is so big. And I also feel that if I work out my own issues and peace, not with, between Israel and Palestine, not between the immigrants and the hardship of Washington, but between me and myself, all these problems that I just mentioned, plus many, many more, solved. And I think it should be taught in school to be a spiritually evolved person from a young age. I really believe that. And Artemis, as far as being an elder, to continue, yes, this is our chance now. And the people that I'm in, live around me are 20s. And there's a lot of who are really, they're true activists like we used to be in the 60s and 70s, but different. They're like, so anyway, this is a very dangerous time and a very exciting time. This is a time of crisis and a time of opportunity. I'm very glad to have a few words to share with you that I think we all resonate with.
Yes.
What I'll say.
No, thank you so much. That resonates so deeply. And I'm actually in my 20s myself, and I'm a community organizer. And, you know, Artemis talks a lot about the study of interpretation. And my feeling, and my interpretation in terms of what's happening right now, is that we have already won. Humankind, like, we're feeling this oneness and that we're all experiencing this crisis of the pandemic together, and we're also feeling the importance of coming together and rallying for change. And no matter, you know, where we are in the pendulum, what goes up must come down. I feel that no matter what happens, we're getting closer to where we want to be. And along the lines of nature, my personal interpretation is that we are extensions of nature. Without nature, we would not be. Plants are extensions of our fingertips, you could say. And I also think, you know, my generation, we're getting more in touch with what truly does nourish us. And we're becoming more familiar with the fact that we can nourish our own bodies. We can grow our own food and build our own structures and live harmoniously and consume less. So instead of feeding the war machine and the money machine, we return to what really sustains us. And instead of focusing on power and greed, we focus on nurturing the earth, because without her we would not be. So thank you for what you shared, Noam. I really appreciate that. And welcome, Tina, to the conversation.
Oh, Syd. Thank you, Syd. Words of wisdom.
Thank you.
You might be on mute.
Tina,
Cannot hear you.
yeah, Tina, I thought you were going to speak. I don't know if there's a delay, but I saw you unmute. I'm not sure if you're coming through. We also have a...
Try the telephone connection through...
The volume.
Oh, there we go.
Or a telephone connection with an internet.
Yeah, if anyone is struggling with internet, I recommend taking your video off or dialing in, as Noam mentioned. We also have Phyllis on, Giselle. I also want to highlight that Giselle's partner, Lorenzo, will be going live at 8 p.m. Giselle, if you want to share a little bit about what that is, or we can simply, at that time, direct people to Lorenzo and what he'll be doing through Facebook Live.
just be introducing them if you want to, even if you want to just say hi now since you're just catching us.
Hi, I'm a friend of Brenda and Andy. Hi.
Hi, Phyllis.
Hey, Phyllis.
Hey, Phyllis.
Welcome.
Welcome to the
Welcome, Phyllis.
conversation.
I want to announce that I am driving to voting booth, and I'm going to show you all my vote. So I'm just coming here to Sherborne. I'm not going to put it. I'm not going to follow every moment experience, but I want to express how honored I am that as an American we get to vote in this way. I don't think it's a democracy. It's where we are as a species. But for 280 years ago, what it represents as a reflection of the French Revolution and coming together, I believe in expressing every form of democracy we can, both politically, personally, in our personal relations. We democratic, and that's what I believe in. And I'm now getting in my wheelchair, and my doggies are here. They're part of the democracy of love. And I'll stay in the booth. I'm mute now, and I'm going to tell you all about my voting.
Vote, vote.
So something that has come up quite a bit is this idea that for many, Biden might not be the one, but he is getting us closer to where we want to go. So I don't know if anyone has a similar sentiment or might want to highlight why they chose to vote this year. Feel free to popcorn style it.
So I'm going to jump in because when we chose Biden, it was because the Republican nominee is not presidential. And the issues that have happened in the last 4 years are unprecedented. So Biden might not be best at it, but he will listen. We can lobby. We can exercise our right to protest. We can exercise voices, and he will listen. So it will move us into the direction of working together and being collective, and moving the agenda forward.
Thank you so much, Giselle, for saying that. Before I chime in, any other feedback?
Hi. I guess every single election, I always feel like this is what we get. And I feel like a lot of the lobbying and letters and, really like being a voice, especially where in Western Mass, it's just, we're kind of like, maybe recently it's been better, but for so long it seems like Western Mass was really just kind of out in the sticks here and quiet. But, I was upon coming out here that there's a tremendous amount of political activity that's happening because there's all the surrounding colleges and everything else. But, as a woman, I really, and I mean, I really was feeling Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
It's just kind of like, which way do you go? I've known people who have known Elizabeth, and I really like them very much, and I like the work that they've done on local level in terms of the work they've done with people with cognitive impairments and, like getting people to work and feeling a sense of work and things like that. I met Elizabeth Warren during her campaigning back in the, I want to say like early 2000s. It was so long ago. Maybe 05 or 06, but it was on Veterans Day. It was on a certain Veterans Day, and I liked her. I liked it, and I guess it's. I'm not really in alignment with Trump. I do come from a family that aligns themselves in that way. And I guess it was a kind of place that never felt like home to me. I kind of tend to avoid, you know, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've seen with Trump has just been really almost surreal, really. I mean, between the wall and everything else, it's just so un-American.
Right.
I feel that Biden will listen.
He expected that every vote counted by sometime tomorrow. There's been a little hitch in that.
What was that? Oh, he must be in voting.
Yeah, it's possible someone is unmuted. I don't see anyone unmuted. But yeah, I hear you, Gwen, and just a remark is, you know, we've had a couple days now together. This is the 4th night of the Epic Democracy Series. And the first night we talked about the cult of Trump and how as an anti-establishment figure, you know, a lot of people have been frustrated by politics, not feeling like they have a voice, feeling like the corporations are running things, and then we have some non-politician coming in, right? And it just so happened to be this figure, this entertainment, you know, individual. So we talked about that and some of the fear rhetoric that he has used to play upon certain narratives that are, you know, like, for example, the idea that I mean, I don't want to speak for a side that I don't necessarily like agree with, but the idea that voting for Biden is voting for socialism in our country. And then on the second night of this series, we talked about the other and how the human psyche changes and our thinking changes when we feel threatened. And for a long time, we've talked about humans being rational and having emotions. But now we're changing the narrative to we're emotional beings that are trying to think logically. And we can't do that when we feel fear, when we feel threat. And then last night, we spoke about a lot of different things. But last night, the focus was on, I don't know what I should focus on specifically, but just about all the different perspectives and how we can come together during this time and feel this unity. So Gwen, I just want to thank you for bringing that up and also introduce, we have Kim, Sharon, and Kathy on. Feel free, guys, to introduce yourselves. You can also ask any questions you have on the chat. And just again to note, last night we spoke about, just to be a bit more specific, the 28th Amendment and ranked choice voting. So how can we get the money out of politics, and how can we vote in a way where we're picking actually who we prefer and not just the lesser of two evils? Does anyone new on feel like introducing themselves and sharing, you know, why they're inspired enough to be on this call amongst maybe feeling a bit anxious about these election results? We have Kathy Pham from Miami, Florida. And Phyllis Evan made a comment about Biden being a weak candidate, but at least he's not Trump. Thank you for that.
Just interested in the topic and hearing what folks have to say.
Thank you. We also have Artemis live at the polls right now voting, and at 8 p.m. we'll have Giselle link us to Lorenzo, who will actually be speaking live. Giselle, if you just want to comment in the chat what Lorenzo will be doing at 8 p.m. so that we can have an introduction and segue to his presentation. Thank you.
I can speak briefly again.
Yeah, sure.
So we're just going to brief over the election today. As the polls close at 8 o'clock, we're going to look back 4 years, talk Lincoln Project, all the players that came into this play, because this was a my favorite quote, it's democracy is a spectator sport. So everyone put their hands in, everybody digged in, and now we're waiting for the results, right? This is like the big, like, okay. I saw a post earlier today too that said it was like a group project, right? Like we all worked on it, and now we're trying to say my part. Let's see if everybody did theirs. So it's awesome to watch the election unfold. The numbers coming up. So that's kind of what we're doing for the next hour. You're more than welcome to join us on Facebook. We're gonna share the link to Facebook through this Zoom. We'll be on Zoom on here, so I'll leave you for a little bit. But I do have a question I want to throw to the group. I hear a lot that some of our family members do not align with our political views. What happened at Thanksgiving? Like, what do we do about politics?
Thank you for that question, Giselle. I know a lot of us on here tonight. Go ahead.
Well, I've always been a black sheep of my family, and by that I mean that I was an empath, and I was sensitive. And, like my little friends that I grew up with, when they found me on Facebook, they always tell me about this one moment when they felt really bad, and there was, it's a values thing. It's really a values thing. And I just have always been different from my family. And so we don't share Thanksgiving together. And I've created different holidays. My daughter and I actually enjoy appreciation of Jewish people that were here before us. And we, my daughter is also biracial. So foods that we like. So I think what I've generally felt is that when my point of being listened to or really felt or heard, it's just kind of better to just sort of become who you are apart from that. So dinner table, we talk about healing stuff and how trauma has rooted itself for generations, and how can we make it stop right here, right now? So
beautiful, Gwen. And what does the dinner? I love that the dinner table now talks about healing and bringing us together. In my experience, I have people that look at politics as taboo. So here comes the one that ran for office, the daughter, and like I come to the table and we don't roll. Like, oh, you don't roll?
Yeah.
So that I'm like, oh my God. So it's like, oh, she comes again, she's gonna talk about politics, is she running next year? So those are kind of the conversations that happen where in my community people think that politics is taboo. And I think we need to mend those conversations again because it affects us.
Well, I also want to add to that in my family, like, my father was like on the board of selectmen. He was on the board of trustees at the bank. He was very politically involved locally. But whenever I would ask about it, he would say that I didn't have to worry about that. And it's because I was female, and it was just that at that time, that was his approach. That was, he really did a lot of educating with my brother in terms of history and everything like that. But me and my sister were different because we were girls. So that is kind of the dynamic that when we would ask about it, or when I would ask about it, it would just be like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. So cultural.
And I feel like a lot of people don't feel like their vote matters. Again, I mentioned last night we spoke about the 28th Amendment, which would get money out of politics, or big money out of politics. So right now, I know a lot of us feel like legalize bribery and extortion is our political system, and fractionalism, excuse me, has created this very dysfunctional system where we can't get things done. And so it's exciting that in places like Massachusetts, ranked choice voting is happening, and hopefully more and more states will have additional candidates, so more people feel like they have, you know, a preference at the least. And then at the same time, you know, if these candidates are, you know, if they don't win, then their runner-up will. So it will probably incentivize less bashing and hateful language towards one another, and instead, you know, trying to support each other. You know, if I don't win, then hopefully this next person in line will. So I just wanted to highlight that because I feel like it is exciting that we're starting to see these changes that might inspire more people to get involved in the system. And to answer your question, Giselle, I feel like listening is just so powerful. Like I can't resonate with people who vote for Trump, but I'm curious. I am very curious why people are voting for Trump. And I mean, a lot of it to me comes back to religion and money. You know, these are two things that are still really prominent in our society despite major shifts and changes in philosophy. So if anyone wants to speak on their viewpoint of how to engage with family members or close friends that are voting Trump, feel free to join in.
Okay, wait a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Wait, hear Mina?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so excited and happy that I finally was. So I'm wearing a headset. I decided, I'll start my video again. So I'm coming in late. I haven't heard the last 15 minutes. Actually, took the call too, but so I have questions for the. Who's best guess as to when we're actually going to know the results? Okay, because I know that today's voting day, that I know it's going to take days. I've heard a month. Does anybody have any idea?
Oh, we have a raised hand. Kat, please.
Wait, what? You want me to talk about it?
Sure. A Kat rose their hand, but go ahead, Patrick.
Good.
Well, Patrick, if you want to repeat what I said to you on the phone, I'm happy to do that.
Wonderful, Joseph. Please do.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, it may take, especially in Pennsylvania, a state that holds it takes. But if Biden wins Florida, it could be over by, 10 p.m. I mean, we just don't know. So, yeah, there's a high likelihood that it'll be Pennsylvania and last a long time, but, we just don't. There are various paths that Biden could lock it up today in a decisive way. I'm not optimistic that it'll, but I'm optimistic. I don't know. But we don't know that it'll last weeks, just like we don't know that it won't.
Right. Thank you. And Kat is unmuted. Kat, are you?
Yes, I am here.
Great. Would you like to share?
Yes. Heard a little bit about lately, which I've sort of heard a theme over time, is that a lot of Republicans are showing up today. So what that means basically is, starting from the East Coast moving out west, Florida, they're going to knock out right away. Because like I said, so many votes will be here. Now, if Trump loses Florida, game basically, so that would be great news. And right now we have results coming in here or there. Now, but what the plan has been, for what I do believe, what I've heard from some different news people are, he's got a bunch of attorneys lined up, ready to go. He's going to claim victory tonight regardless. We can say, hey, the votes are in, I win. Because see, most of the Republicans came today. All these other votes are coming in. They're going to be counting all these anti-ballot Democrats for days. So officially, he might be the winner tonight if they quit counting, but they're not. They have a lot of absentee votes coming in. So immediately he's going to run in the courts and say da 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 da. So here we go. Let the games begin. This could go on for how long? Now the court involved in politicized courts. It's frightening. It's frightening what we may be facing, unless there is a landslide where it's so overwhelmed. Like Florida, if we really win heavily right now, that's going to help. So really, the only thing we have in our favor is a landslide.
So I want to recommend you take your video off. I recommend you take your video off so your audio comes through a little bit better. Tap the video camera icon.
Video camera. Okay. All right.
There you go.
There we go. Is that better?
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So that, I've had a couple of different say that. I mean, some I respect.
So that lends itself to the People's Party. So the People's Party, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's a convention that was put on by a lot of different individuals who are pro-democracy, and I actually watched a recent video of their planning for a coup, or how to navigate if there is a coup. So if Trump refuses to leave despite election results.
Yeah, there's a lot of mobilized forces going into effect right now and tomorrow. Even at the tail end of what you sent me, Sydney, of what Artemis is having, there's a bunch of websites that are into voter enforcement, voter protection, and the following day tomorrow, what's next, and where they're mobilizing people to get ready for action if there's assistance with anything. I mean, we just don't know what to expect. So that's that. Let me mention real quick to the ranked choice voting issue. You know why we don't have right now, right? You know why we don't have campaign financing right now? Oh, we do, but it's the kind that keeps the incumbents in. It's all the power of the people are making the decisions. So that's why we can't have, the ones that will decide this are the ones that are in power, and they're not going to change anything. So this leads me into and that's why I'm voting for Biden. The only hope that I see for our country is these young progressives on the left that can challenge Biden to move a little bit, because if Trump gets in there, we're down Trump stand. For now, like we're so tilting to the right hardcore. Who knows if we could ever turn?
Thank you.
Is movable. He's movable, just like Nixon was, just like Reagan was a little bit.
Thank you.
That's we'll like to say that now, but anyway, that's what I believe.
Thank
so
you.
anyway, we're not going to know exactly when this is all going to end. Anyway,
So I want to thank
so
you.
Get ready.
Yeah, get ready, everyone. And I just wanted to welcome Judy onto the call and anyone else new on the call. As a reminder, you can raise your hand if you'd like to speak. You can also put a thumbs up. You can also just show a heart, or just ask any questions you might have, comments in the chat. But we welcome everyone, and this is a popcorn-style conversation, so feel free to share your feedback at any point.
Hello, just wanted to say hi.
Thank you so much.
When your email just popped up.
Oh, great. Well,
Great.
hi, Judy.
Welcome.
Hi.
Podolsky, would you like to say something or introduce yourself?
Yeah, I know Patrick through Hampshire College, and appreciate the link. And I don't know, I hope Biden wins or increased lives. Like that.
Liz,
Thank you, Jonathan. Anything you want to say about your work? We kind of introduced ourselves earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. Activist. This year I've been let's see, last year I was helping Hampshire. This year, tried to help save Marlborough College. Now I'm kind of advising some other people trying to save college programs.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So how would the individuals on this call respond if Trump chooses?
You're muted, Sydney.
Thank you. So how would the individuals on this call respond if Trump chooses to not leave office? I don't know if that's a question we want to pose, but I am curious how we're going to rally if that is the outcome here.
I've actually been thinking about that. My young warriors, the one adopted here above where I live and next door, and the council people that we have from City Hall are talking about they've been taking training how to behave on the streets if there's a coup. And I was saying, what? A coup in America? Is that possible? And I'm smiling, but I'm not smiling because I'm happy. I'm smiling because of that, the possibility of that, and yet it's not impossible. And there's a group, it's a Jewish group, Never Again, or I think they sponsored that an anti-fascist group that started before Hitler and the Nazis, and they haven't stopped. Now, in combination with other modern, progressive, postmodern politics, they're hosting training for what to do if that happens. And I have to ask myself, am I going to train that training or not? Am I going to go out to the streets and having, and even the mere having to ask myself that question really had a profound impact on me. It's not whether what specific is going to happen. I mean, of course, we want Biden to win, whether we let him a lot or without up to the better choice. But the fact that we need to consider the president, the United States, the White House, not conceding and actually going the way of despots and fascists. And we've talked, so clearly about that. And you had all these experts telling us how that can happen in night 1 or 2. I got some good places in Portugal, by the way, Brenda and Andy, that I can recommend. That a lot of people from Israel left because of what's going in the politics over there. And created beautiful communities there of farming and goats and sheep and plants and work. But I don't want to live in this kind of America.
Yeah.
So anyway,
thank you.
Let's hope that our young generation will vote him out.
Yes.
I could speak. I would certainly do everything I could to oppose a coup in the United States. And I did some training with the Unitarian Universalist. You wrote.
We think that's who it was.
And it's with Conquered Indivisible also. And so there are groups that are training people to do mass nonviolent demonstrations in the street. So that like as they did in Portland, Oregon, the linemen maybe at the front. There are various things, but the important thing is that it be nonviolent. I forget exactly what I was going to say, but we're going to participate in something tomorrow. And also, mass strike, there's some labor unions that are talking about going on strike. And other countries have coups and stopped them with mass demonstrations and general strikes. And we could easily do that. I don't know about easily, but we would have the means to do that. So I'm certainly going to exhaust all efforts before departing from the country.
Great, thank you. And Tina, you raised your hand. Feel free to chime in.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
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 I can hear you.
I
See you and I can hear you.
I am happy finally to get through because I've been really enjoying this, especially everybody, but of course now that I'm on, all my thoughts left me to say something relevant. Well, we were touching on just what you were talking about. There is an organization called, if you guys want to jot down, maybe you can put it on the thread. It's called protectttheresults.com. And there, Andy, maybe and so basically you put in your zip code and it tells you where your most local demonstration is going to take. So it's a great platform. I encourage everybody to look at it. For every time somebody's talked tonight, I just have wanted to add, and my team have nothing.
Please say more.
All right. Well, actually, we're going way into. We were talking the 20-somethings and the young people, and I have a 25 and 24 and 20. I don't even know their ages anyway. The two wonderful young, and they're very much like that. They've grown up. I noticed when they were in school. When I was in school, I would never even date or hug a teacher, and they were very demonstrative. The 20s, a lot of love. I love you, Mom. They started that, ending the call. My parents, I don't know about y'all's, but they weren't as expressive, and I think it's just wonderful and heartening that there's love and people are going to be inheriting this mess. And then a second thing I want to say, I'm playing catch up, so I get my turn. Was very much love in this group because I really actually am finding that as I'm getting to know you guys, I'm feeling more of a friendship and more connection. But to that point, we were also talking about how are we going to go forward with this new culture that's going to happen. And it occurred to me, if somebody in Italy or putting this kind of a forum by neighborhood, like how there's those social medias like next door Harvard, one for your neighbor. Do you know I don't know my neighbors? And that's terrible. And I think if there's more openness between and more dialogue, because the unknown kind of fosters not a good feeling. So if people were just got to have these cocktail parties, which is sort of, we were texting, he said it is kind of like this with you guys. When people used to have cocktail parties and to discuss the issues, to discuss worldviews and things like that. And it's okay to disagree. Yeah. But now people don't have that space to disagree without becoming like road rage or something. I'll leave it up to you guys. I just wanted to catch up a little. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off to Gwen. I also just want to say briefly first that we have the means and the technology to be able to communicate. I know that not all of us can access technology or not all of us have smartphones, but most of us in this country can access a public library, hopefully, where we can go to a website and share our feedback in the form of a survey. Facebook, which the majority of people in the world are on, allows for surveys and polls. There are Facebook groups right now where certain groups can collectively decide to make decisions that would affect a company's bottom line, a company who is influencing our country and our politics. So just bear in mind that we are empowered in that way, and it's really exciting to be able to use these platforms in that way. And we all have a choice for how we're using these platforms. Gwen, take it away, please.
Okay, so I just have some thoughts. So I'm going to go all the way back to Nome for a minute. I love the work that Nome is doing with, did you say that you're in Waltham? No.
Yes, I am in what?
So like I work there, and it's a very busy area. But I do have a few things to say about youth. The youth of today who are voting today, if they are, and if they haven't lost hope yet, were born during 9/11. They were born right before it, or right on it, or immediately after it, like my daughter was. And so their reality of our country is very, very different than the reality that we grew up with in the 60s and 70s, or even the 40s and 50s. And I have young friends. I have young friends who come and they want to talk to me, and I love it very, very, very much. I love it. And we talk things, and a lot of them right now just want to break the system. And some of them are Trumpers, and some of them are not. And some of them are anarchists that are just, we're going to break the system. We're going to write in the third party. We're gonna just not vote. It's they've grown up in a culture. They've had to go to school and live with the daily reality that somebody could come in there and just shoot the whole school down. And there's been a lot of conflict around that. Some people want protection and some don't. But those are the youth that are voting. My daughter, okay, maybe last year was her vote. This is like right around the age bracket right now of these generations of kids. In terms of like the 30s generation, they're pissed off. They feel off and they so I think like in terms of like what's going to happen and like what to anticipate, the only thing that I resolve is to be in the moment and to really just like really keep myself grounded and connected with the earth and rooted in within my knowing, in my own knowing, and to keep moving around. Does that help? And to just be here, because I cast my vote a month ago. So, today I was like, does anyone need a ride? If anyone needs a ride, I can do anything, I got no request for rides, and it's okay.
Thank you.
So
Artemis.
That's thing. And then neighbor thing. So, yes, I am all about neighborhood gatherings, and the reason how the reason why I'm inspired to do that is being in the garden, in a community garden. I began to like talk to my neighbors, and they're from different countries, different cultural background. I was in the garden with this neighbor of mine who's from Pakistan, and I was like, "Oh my God, look at my eggplant!" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, your eggplant!" I said, "How do you cook your eggplant? How do you do it?" So now it's all this curiosity. It's the curiosity that leads to that beautiful coming together of different traditions and cultures. That is like, someone was tonight when people asked me, I think Latifah was saying it, I'm from everywhere. Like, where are you from? I'm from everywhere. We started having like an international cooking series, and we did that for a little while, and it led into more and more. I think what's really important about that is that there's some kind of a degree of organization to the things. Like I took part in a sociocracy class, and that was really, really amazing. And so, yeah, that's my input. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Artemis, I see your hand raised. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm back from voting. I'm very excited about my votes. I did vote, of course, on number 2, which is about ranked choice voting. I'm very excited about having met through Patrick, the leader of that. So I like this conversation between us has been deeply moving for me. I love the intimacy. I think Christmas, a political act, is an act of love between people. It's about permission, the power of permission, power of no. No is a yes, right? And particularly for women in our culture that have been trained to say yes to men all the time. I have daughters who just say no about 1,000 times a week. And I love that. I love that they can say no. I mean, sometimes I really love the agency and the dignity saying no. And then the final thing I want to say is I come into this raving him, but seeing him under the pressure of Trump, the indignities, I believe he is the best choice for our president, not just because of him being the Democrat. He is prepared for this. And his running mate is unbelievable. And I would be honored for Kamala Harris to be president. So I'm just really excited about this election. I'm really excited that after tonight, there'll be some more clarity. May not be over. I don't think there'll be a coup. I think, if you look at Nixon got a call from Alexander Haig, who said, Nixon, if you don't get out of the White House in a week, the military is ready to kick you out. And the military was prepared to take control of the White House if Nixon didn't leave. And it's one of these untold stories of American history, the role that Gerald Ford played in that decision to have him leave and to be the president. And I think thank God we have a more cooler vice president. And I know we don't like Pence politically, but I'd rather have Mike Pence be the vice president telling Trump to leave too. Because it is about our Constitution. It is about the long-last life of this DNA of our country. And what I think we saw last night is we can democratize our democracy. We can take money out of politics and make it fair. We can do ranked choice voting and make more coherence between candidates. More people should run. Was talking about running for office before I supported her campaign, and it was a great experience for her. I'm also going to run for office one day on a democratic platform called Liberty, Love, and Justice Committee. And we're going to bring together the way the Native American state in what's called the Confederation that was really at the core of our Revolutionary War. That our government was organized not as a centralized government, but as a group of revolutionaries running like town meetings in their communities. I really believe neighborhood not just nice to have block parties, but we should get together and talk about on the corner of the street, should there be a traffic light? Should we slow people down and put speed bumps? We need to take control of our democracy, and it starts at home. It's like the Green Party movement. Think locally, act locally, globally. And it's unity out of diversity. Unity comes from diversity. When we talk about nature, the most beautiful forests are not the monoculture forests, they're the diverse forests. And so that's why our country needs diversity. We are not just white people here. We are all. And my dear friend Cornel West said, it's not about black and white. It's about chocolate-covered ice cream It's about Malala ice cream. It's about ice cream. We are ice creams. And all this superficiality about the color of our skin, it's over. We don't need to be that way anymore. So I celebrate what Biden has done by picking Kamala Harris. I hope he wins with all my heart. And if he doesn't win, we're going to keep. That's all we have to do. So thank you for listening to my little passionate plea. I love what we've done here. I think we should keep going as a support group, as a networking group. And Syd, you've done an amazing job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we were actually going to show Lorenzo Gaines live. So I did make you a co-host, Patrick, if you don't mind logging onto Facebook and going to Lorenzo Gaines' Facebook page and sharing your screen. If you can't do that, I can attempt. I'm just currently live on Facebook with my Zoom screen. So, yeah, if you don't mind.
I might have to jump off and I'll jump back in.
Okay.
Thank you. Let you know.
So we're going to be here until 12 o'clock tonight. After this show.
Until midnight.
A democracy from 12. So we'll join. So come back in. And what's the news? Florida yet, or is it still in debate?
Well, Lorenzo might be actually touching on that. He's currently live on. Yeah, he's currently live on Facebook now. So we were gonna watch him together here.
Yeah, we're on a dead heat with, we're like, Trump is leading him by a tiny bit. But there's one guy who wrote an article that said if Biden wins any of these 3 states, and it's Ohio, North Carolina, then Biden wins. I don't know if I agree with him, but we are winning by 20% in Ohio. So Biden is winning 20%. And if this is accurate, then we're doing very well. Also, Biden is winning in Texas, which is quite nice. I mean, it's very, so we can't really say anything. It's like 20% of the votes have been counted. And the big thing that happens is in each state, the early votes, which is now somewhere, I don't even know, it's somewhere between 40 and 60% of the votes. There's some point in the night when each state, and it's a different time in each state, when all the early votes counted. And when they do, that really changes things. So just to say that.
Thank you, Patrick.
What page of Lorenzo's do I go to on Facebook?
His personal page. Do you have the link? Would you like me to send it, or you have it?
Can I ask everyone, you want to go to Lorenzo, or do we want to keep going here? I mean, people seem so energized.
So we're gonna,
I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice for us to watch it together here, if that's possible. But if the quality's not so great, I'm gonna put the link in the chat right now so people can go to it themselves.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. We'll see how it works.
Great, thank you. So the sound is off. So if you click that icon right there, yeah.
10 minutes. The shows get to call in and talk about the sports team. Be respectful and not vulgar. No personal attacks. Just the fact about your team. Outside Lines with Lorenzo Gaines. Outlines is a sports highlight talk show that deals with everything between the white lines and outside. We aim to keep our listeners informed, cater to the latest news in the sports world.
I would like to say that I do not believe that this protest really has anything with the disrespect.
Brag About Your Team is a 10-minute segment of the show where callers get to call in and talk about their favorite team. We're not no personal attacks, just the facts. That's right, just the facts. Call and brag about your team.
Is this working? Because we're need to be on here.
It's a bit.
Can anyone hear me?
It's a bit glitchy.
It's very awful sound.
So is he live on that clip, or if you scroll down, do you see? That looks like a recorded video. That doesn't look like a live. There he is live right there. Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
Or drag down. Oh, yeah. The Dallas Cowboys got beat. Aha! So anyways, if today's your birthday, let me read for us. You're a man. A new adventure that will encourage your personal growth and enlightenment. Love, peace, and fitness are within reach. Now, time to take action. If you're a Cancer like me, born between June 21st and July 22nd, put your creativity to place in your resume or at an interview. Celebrate loved one. Well, I got my loved one in the building. She down so big shout you and So today in sports history, well, first I got a couple birthday shout-outs. I want to give Crystal Center Brown a happy birthday. Miss Niecy Chase, Rifle Street in the field. Mr. Down to Bench, a.k.a. Mr. Toyota Supra. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for everything.
I think we should do you should just go into the show and explain to him what you want to do.
So it looks a bit glitchy, but we were just going
By the way,
to.
everyone needs to mute their microphone. There's a terrible static going on. Everyone needs to mute for a second.
Also, I might not be the best person to share because I'm on it on an old computer, and the fans on my computer are very loud. So
Okay.
That's probably is the static.
Okay. I can give it a shot.
I'm going to unshare my screen.
Patrick, I do believe that this is not him live. I'm on my phone, and on his Facebook page is the real, not this. Sorry to say.
Okay.
And right now on his Facebook page, he's running a video. I think of Booker. So.
All right, I'm going to try to pull it up now.
I declare, Sydney, we just abandon this and keep our conversation going, and then people who want to join him can.
Sure, absolutely.
I think it's too thick, and we're losing our spirit here.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't. Who would love to share that hasn't been? And I need some phone that I love deeply from Vancouver in particular. Initials SS. Would you like to say anything, Susan, from a Canadian standpoint? All right. Well, I guess, Susan, you're not there. But who has not had a chance to speak that would love to share their view of Biden, their view of Trump, their fears about the future? I would love to read Walter Strauss's statement about what to do tomorrow if we need to.
Sure.
But I don't want to be in the mood. I want to be more in a mood of honoring our democracy, honoring each other, not living in anxiety, which so many of us have been living in, but living in joy with this political process. And I want to focus on the joy of this moment. So I invite everyone to share what you're most excited about. Like, what do you feel about Kamala Harris, and how do you feel, the Senate will change, and what is our vision? What is our hope?
I can share a bit.
Please.
So I'm certainly supporting the Democrats, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But I don't have much anxiety about the outcome of the election. Because I think, whatever the outcome is, it's our collective choice, and we shouldn't dictate our mood, so to speak, right? So we will continue to live the best of our life, and be more, do things within our control that make a difference in our life and in the life of people around us. So ultimately, I think that is happy. Not on the national level, whatever international level. I think it's obviously it has an effect on us, but I don't want to be dictated by that.
I love that. Thank you, Stephen.
I think what I also would love to add is that I'm Russian, and that happening, and there are two choices. It's a huge thing. That the fact that there is even an opportunity to win, there's an opportunity for someone who is at the leading board of the country, and that person can switch based on people's opinion. I said it's not a perfect democratic process, but I think I've been around the world in many places and have family and friends all over the world. I think that, what I feel today is gratitude, a lot of gratitude for even me being able to express the choice. And so I understand some people like some candidates, they might not like another candidates, but I think the fact that in Russia there were really no elections for the last more than 20 or 30 years, and one person decides how to change a constitution based on his liking, and the same thing in China, where Stephen is from. So I think I am just feeling a lot of gratitude for them having what we have in this country. And if it's another 4 years, I know that there is a limit. Right? So because there is a limit of 2 presidential, 8 years is maximum for any kind of person to be a leader. So I think I feel a lot of gratitude today.
Thank you.
Can the two of you introduce yourselves? And Stephen, you are Chinese. You represent, say, China. And we have our Russian sister here, and you represent Russia. And what is it about? Why are we fighting with Russia and China from your perspectives? And say a little bit of who you are.
Okay. Artemis, that's such a broad question of who I am. I am 40 years old. I still don't know who I am. Still trying to figure out that question. I think you're ahead of me, ahead of the game. I mean, I spoke today with my dad, and he was asking me if we're going to vote. and then he was like, well, who are you voting for? So I told him, and he's like, well, I'm not going to give any advice, because otherwise they'll tell you that Russians are intervening into the American elections. So he's like, just make the right choice. And you know what the interesting perspective of mine was, he was enthusiastic about either of the two guys. because from his perspective, and this is my perspective, and I can share more of who I am from that opinion, is that I would have loved to see younger people who are running for governing the country, because I think that both of them are. I mean, I don't know if I would vote for my grandfather to run the country, because I think that the level of understanding and the worldview of themselves is limited, given the generation that they're coming from. You know, they're not bad people. I've done so much inner work of forgiveness and loving and accepting people. And so I don't think these are bad people. These are things different. It takes a while for that level of consciousness to evolve. And what I do, I mean, I help people to heal. I'm in personal development field. I help businessmen, people who are creatives, to build a business. But I come from the perspective of metaphysics, which really state that the only way to change anything in your life, you have to change yourself. You cannot blame people, you cannot blame the circumstances, you cannot point fingers, you have to take responsibility for your life, change your mindset, change how you feel, forgive, let go, etc., so that you can create something new and have an influence on some level without being attached to it. And I think, you know, for my parents who are in the 60s, even them, like it's me and them, they're us, and they are just barely accepting the field of psychology, that psychology has an impact on this world. So expecting Trump to take responsibility for his actions, his words, it's an honorable wish, but I think there is a limitation in consciousness that he's come, which doesn't make him a bad person. It makes him a limiting person, maybe not the person who would be the best inspiring leader to run the country. And I don't know how different Biden is on that level. So, I mean, what I would wish for for myself is that Trump has been an amazing spiritual teacher for me for the last 4 years, because he has taught me how to tolerate different things, how to just accept the person the way he is, and worked with a lot of judgments that I do have towards him or maybe some other politicians. So he has been an amazing mirror for acceptance, tolerance, and unconditional love. But at the same time, what I would love to do is to have a leader who is actually from hope but not from shit.
Yes, you know? Definitely.
Hopefully, who is inspiring me to evolve and kind of like, oh, I want to be like him.
Definitely.
Rather than say, I don't want to like him.
Right.
So I think that I've seen, I mean, I heard somebody said that, you know, maybe the younger generation is kind of a little bit apathetic to politics, and but I've met personally some people, and with whom I work in coaching, who are deep thinkers, who are looking at the world and like, wow, that I would love to see it change. But I mean, what my wish comes from more younger people saying, I'm good enough, I believe in my values, and I believe I can trust self. and I can bring something important to the table of discussion. And I think the older generation, and at the same time, I think there is a level of responsibility, which is, I mean, I don't know, this is a complex subject of just really respecting the younger generation as well, and understanding that they're not just years of experience does not make someone prepared for something.
Thank you so much. Wow. That was super powerful. And I love what you both said. And Stephen, you mentioned not feeling anxious about this election. And that's also very interesting to me because we talked about earlier on the call just going inward and focusing on ourselves and our own standard for ourselves and not looking to the powers that be for the answers, for, you know, oh, we have Larry Rothstein joining us, and seeing ourselves as the ones in control of our lives. And that's why I continue to bring it back to working with Mother Nature, nourishing ourselves, being able to learn how to sustain ourselves so that despite the election results, we can still provide for ourselves and we can do so in community. So thank you both so much for what you shared. It was really powerful. And I just want to welcome our newcomer, Larry. Hi, Larry. Feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like, and you can also submit any questions or feedback in the chat. But Artemis, he asked a question. What exactly was Artemis's question? Does anyone remember specifically? Prior to intros. Feelings. How is everyone feeling right now about what's happening? And I guess I am a part of the younger generation here, so I can also speak from that perspective, but I'd love to open it up.
No, why don't you speak to that perspective?
Okay.
Why don't you speak about your political leaders and what we will be doing to support you? Because this is about us coming together to bring out all of our best practices.
Right, we want to listen.
And you are so gifted. So talk about your political ambitions and a little bit about the nonprofit, for-profit concept of a community that you are the world.
Absolutely. I just also want to say hi to Larry. I noticed you unmuted. Do you want to just say hello briefly before I share?
Sure. Oh.
Hi.
I just saw that Florida may go Trump, so very unnerving. He's got 86% of the votes in, and it's got about a 3 or 4 point lead. He's getting a fairly substantial number of Latino votes, which would up in the polls. So if he takes Florida, it's going to be harder for Biden to get to 270.
Right.
And it's a huge state, a lot of votes.
We spoke about older Latinos and Cuban Americans last night, and they're leaning towards Trump because of fearing what they fled, which was socialism. And
socialism.
Yeah. And just taking it back to what we talked about a second ago, Stephen mentioned anxiety, feelings of anxiety or lack thereof. And I just wanted to bring that back to Artemis's question about my philosophy. And really, I think all of us have seen in nature the pendulum. It swings one way and then the other. What goes up must come down. It's the wave. And so even if the results of this election are not what we hope, my feeling is that it is getting us closer to where we want to go. And Artemis brought up the nonprofit, for-profit concepts and ideas. Obviously, we're in a world where capitalism is the priority. It's about what we can commoditize. Obviously, sunshine is essential for our existence, and yet we can't bottle it up and sell it. And so we're degrading our earth and the very thing that gives us life. We've lost touch with that, and that's, I think, you mentioned, Stephen, what is your partner's name? What is your name? I'm so sorry. I missed it.
I'm Stephen. She's Masha.
Masha. Thank you, Masha. just mentioning consciousness. I think that as a younger person, what I feel is a soul pain because I feel a conscious shift. I feel my colleagues and associates in this younger generation making major choices that are against the grain, seeking to, for example, minimalize and focus on consuming less, changing their consumption choices. And if more of us rally around these efforts together and utilize social media in a way where we are organizing around these choices versus mind-numbing activity, it could change a lot of things. And Artemis, you mentioned a lot, think locally, or excuse me, act locally, think globally. And when I think about thinking globally, I think about the universe. I think about our existence as this one entity, a part of this universe where we all affect each other and we're all deeply and intimately connected and intertwined. And I do think there is power to individualistic thinking, thinking again about, you know, how can we hold our own selves to a higher standard, but then in tandem with that, how can we also think about the whole, the entire big picture. And we also have another guest joining us, Jonathan. Welcome to the call. And if anyone just wants to follow suit, I'm feeling really encouraged to be on this call with you all who might be a little bit older than myself, because we need people who see this conscious shift and feel it, and who want to see young people step up and return to our roots, return to what sustains us, and that is food, shelter, and love and community. I think that power and greed is getting old, and we have the resources and the means to help each other, and it's time to start acting that way. So welcome, Jonathan, to the call. Feel free to introduce yourself, and anyone feel free to chime in.
Just something like Artemis said earlier about me representing China. So I grew up in China. I came here for college and stayed. So what's interesting is for Chinese, they're watching this from afar, and they want a government that's friendly to them. Historically, interesting enough, Republicans have been more friendly toward China than the Democrats. But in terms of the positioning, so Democrats are too much to the left for average needs. So they don't. I don't think they have like they're probably in the middle about positioning, you know, left, right. For the Chinese community that live in the U.S., actually surprisingly a pretty strong pro-Trump support. So, which is I don't want to go into too much detail. So, okay, so anyway, back to China, right? Because it's essentially on the dictatorship, even though there's constitution, there's indirect election, you could say, because the communist leader is selected by his peers. You know, it's not. It's but because Xi has so much power concentrating him, he's essentially a dictator. There's advantage to that system because I don't know how much you follow like for example the COVID situation in China. There essentially no case in China. If like, you know, I read that when they found one positive case, they tested when she's been in contact with, they test like hundreds of thousands of people from that one positive test because they're just so put so much control and resource controlling this outbreak. So, of course, you know, if you're a foreigner, you travel to China, you locked into a hotel for 14 days. You're not even allowed to get out of the door until you prove yourself to be free. So I mean, in terms of controlling the disease, they're doing a great job, but I don't like that system. So I'm rooting for the U.S. to whatever government having whatever side wins. I want, you know, us to really figure out how to prosper, how to live free without giving to, you know, this kind of dictator. There's no that is the best form of government because it's because look what it's doing in terms of controlling. But I don't check that at all. So I'm definitely rooting for the U.S. So whatever we end up selecting, I'm hoping really make it work.
Can we talk about COVID now for a moment, because this is like biggest lever in our election has been this disease, and Trump has said it's a China disease. It's all because of China. I don't understand how Chinese can support Trump, except for there's an advantage in those people. And that's really what I want to talk about is, why is Putin so strongly for Trump? Why is China so strongly for Biden? What is that paradigm really about? Is it just about power? You know, you think about that statement, power always corrupts. You know, there are all these dictatorships that are running the world now, and there are not many democratically run countries at all. That's thinking of World War II and what we went through to rebuild our world economy and the United Nations. Why is democracy so maligned and not understood? And in your view, Stephen, when you think about China, and in your view, Masha, about Russia, how democratic are those countries in any way? Are they dictatorships? Is there some freedom? I'd love to hear from your perspectives, being from those places. How does it feel to you in that vein?
It's quite a complex question. I think the way I see maybe democracy and those regimes, I see it in the area of so how much fear everyone has and how much fear determines actions and choices. And I think it's cultural, part of it is cultural, but I also see quite a bit of fear here as well in terms of how people make decisions, speak and say. So I think fear is a kind of a universal disease. Much about fear. It's bringing up fear of different things about health, and I think it's what we do in the face of fear determines how we react to different things. I think COVID is also a teacher in that, because, you know, people themselves forever for the last 6 months or 8 months, they've been locked in their house, and that's all they do. And there are people who try to navigate life in of fear. And I think, I mean, in Russia, unfortunately, these fear mechanisms, they are reinforced because if there is viable to oppose Putin, the way that this is basically shut down right away because people are dead or shot or they just disappear. So I think that is a huge fear just for survival and for personal life. And thank you, advocate. So I think it's really the degree of fear we're talking about. And unfortunately, fear is very powerful emotion, can manipulate people with it so much. You know, if you have the best intentions, and then if you press someone's button, especially around life and death, and if people, you know, if their belief system, if someone's belief system is that, you know, I die and I die forever, it's a really powerful fear mechanism to trigger. And politicians are very skillful at triggering fear buttons. You know, how different people align with different emotions. Like politics are the game of emotions. And so many people are unaware of it, unaware of how they're being manipulated. And the same, like way in business, it's also a manipulation of emotions. So basically, the only way that I know for myself is to be aware and to be awake in every moment of my life. That's that I found after searching for many years. Am I prone to it? Like, am I bulletproof? Not at all. Of course, I'm a human being, but that's what I found the solution for myself, and this is what I teach people. But I think as a general, like with masses, manipulating masses based on fear is very easy.
And Trump is pretty good at it. He's really good at it.
He just makes shit all the time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that a lot of the QAnon stuff is just that, you know. I keep up these of people who are like, you know, just, you know, following these leaders who are spiritual leaders, and just I've heard a lot of really tragic stories recently about stuff like that, and it reminds me of, like, I don't know, I think it was 1970 or News, and I think it was around the time of Nixon, actually, when they, with the Jones cult,
yes,
when he took off down to use this place, and I think people are really, really vulnerable to that right now. And I think that, like, for me as an astrologer and a reader and somebody that worked energy and is a healer, like, it's really, people are really afraid right now. And so it's really important. Ethics are very important, and it's especially important to be grounded within ourselves, because it starts inside, and then it's home, it's in the home, it's here, you know. So
this might be slightly off topic, or maybe it's a segue, but I had a friend recently say to me that, and he's very much for democracy and unity and Biden, but he's,
unless we feel safe, unless we feel honored, we have dignity. And then tonight we're seeing the impact of that this fear is stopping people from thinking, and it's also stopping people from finding the joy of the situation rather than focused on the fear,
right?
The deprivation of it. And so that's where I think we're heading in the future. Is we are going to stay in this of not just in this community, but all the communities we share.
Yes, and I wanted to speak to that. Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Awesome. So I was just going to mention, I have a friend that's for Biden, but he believes that the worst thing that could happen is Trump not getting reelected because of the backlash and the, I guess you could say, well, he mentioned that, you know, another 4 years of Trump could mean we're closer to a revolution, we're closer to rebuilding the government. he is a powerful symbol of the dysfunction that we have in government. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that piece, but I think because Artemis brought up joy and how we can find joy from this situation despite the results, it's definitely something to consider.
Larry, our work around the gift, and our work around the gift is when people are challenged physically, mentally, it's a gift and lessons. And our book is called The Gift because we explore how people with disabilities come to see their disability not as part of life. And so just talk about that, Larry, in terms of No Limits Media and what we do around disabilities.
Well, Limits Meet, the nonprofit that Artemis and I started many years ago. And hopefully in about a month or so, on Bloomberg Television called Inclusion at Work, to be the first series ever devoted to helping people with disabilities get jobs. And the premise is that people with disabilities have value and abilities. And in order to unlock them, you need to see that if you have a disability, that you have a gift. And the other side, the employer side, has to see that you're going to bring value to a company or a small business. And I just heard music done by a 10-year-old with autism who's at the Berkeley School of Music's Institute for Arts Education and Special Needs, and working with a teacher there, gifted teacher, produced a rather fine 16-second intro to the series. And without that institute, that boy probably would not be on this path. So when you were talking about community and connection to each other, that when an able-bodied person and a person with a disability actually interact in a more profound way, what I call coupling, which you see it in dance, for example, you reach a greater understanding of each other and can produce something that is highly creative and can be actually extraordinary. There are not too many 10-year-olds who can actually compose something, let alone perform it, with or without disability. So we may have a budding Mozart in our midst, who would have, years ago been assigned to some dingy education class and away from the other students and shunned and humiliated for whatever eccentricity the child had. So just to go back to the point about 4 more years of Trump, I don't know if our democracy can survive 4 more years of Trump. And just commenting quickly on China and Russia, the problem is that neither of those countries have any democratic conditions. So it's highly unlikely in the next 100 years they're going to move towards anything other than what they are. And unfortunately, years ago, I read a book called Politics and Markets, which was an argument that although Americans and freedom-loving people always think their system of government is better and economically more beneficial, the reality is you can have a dictatorship like China has and be very economically progressive. Millions of Chinese are benefiting from their economic system, and other countries are watching it, saying, well, they had COVID, and they locked people down and didn't. They just literally locked them down. They banged the door shut and they couldn't get out. And in that sense, they've been much more successful than America because we're so divided in each other's throats that simple things such as wearing a mask and washing your hands many of us are incapable of doing it, particularly among young people. There's that Governor Baker just singled out yesterday for spreading the virus in our state because their party and they're not listening, so we're to a lockdown again. So it's discouraging, and it does show to me that there are weaknesses in the democratic philosophy and the democratic governance unless we reach a certain level of cooperation and consideration for each other, then we can't deal with the crisis. In fact, Pearl Harbor was attacked now. I don't know if we could deal with it. The right wing would say it was fake news. Did it really happen? People wouldn't sign up to go fight. Couldn't stay away from each other for 3.5, 4 years, like men and women had to do. Go off to war. Didn't see each other literally for years. And we soldiered through 6 or 7 months of, a discipline of distance from each other. I don't quite know what it all means for us, but 4 more years of Trump, I think, will make us even worse and more vulnerable. Did I cover everything?
Thank you. That was awesome.
I want to add into that conversation about 4 more years of Trump. I think our Constitution actually can not just weather the storm, but will respond. And it's we the people who will do that. I want to propose a constitutional convention from this election and say, we have got to take money out of politics. We've got to invite more collaboration politically. And what Trump has done to rule the country from 35% support, I view a cult of people who support him. And sadly, I have members of my own family who are in that tribe of news 24/7, believing that Trump is speaking for all Americans, even though there are Americans killing him. And I think part of that arrogance, and I call it arrogance, is really not listening to the people. And for me, it's not just human beings, it's all beings equal. And it really is earth-based. And I think, Larry, I do agree that our democracy will change if Trump is elected, but we, the people, will rise up. And there's another chance for a different kind of revolution in our country to make democracy more intimate, more real, and more effective. And it's more effective than top-down control, because one guy runs the whole country. If you have bottom-up control, even if it's chaotic, it will be a better quality of life. And that's why Stephen and Masha live in America and not in China and not in Russia. There's freedom here, even in spite of Trump. What I think needs to happen if we lose is we need to dig deep, not leave Canada, not go to another country, but to become more involved in our communities and to bring democracy to everything we do. And the more we are example of democratic behavior as people in our intimate lives as well as political lives, the more change will happen from us, like the ripple effect. I hear your warnings, and you and I come from slightly different generations of America. You understand, Larry, what the Depression was about as a young man. You grew up post World War II. I grew up in the 60s, Cold War. I really feel like it's time to make a new social contract. And this goes back to and what is social contract? And we have to realign our interests as free-loving people with economic interests, social interests, but also how do we protect each other? How do the police protect each other rather than just impose order? To me, the word order is kind of a negative word because it means conformity from everyone. I want disorder. I want chaos and chaos. And I believe that is where democracy really comes. Not with order, but with chaos. So that's my view.
Absolutely.
I'd love to.
We don't disagree that much because I've been guided in some recent work that by James Blunt's quote, which is, "We must make America what it must be." So I think that if we can't get out of politicians the change that is needed, and it does have to come from the bottom up. And a constitutional convention would be interesting. But we're driven apart by lots of forces, some of it benign, that 70 songs available through Alexa. Oh my God, we don't even, what do we do in common? Super Bowl and the 4th of July. We don't have songs anymore that most people would know or recognize. It's fragmented by your interests and your background, and you can call up 20,000 songs you like to listen on the radio like people did in the 40s or in the 50s on television. To certain, they might have been bland songs, but at least people all knew them. Not all people, but people knew them. So we have to construct it. We have to get away from selfies. We have to take commies or something, where we celebrate communal actions together, which we don't do. In fact, one of the only places where there's communal action is around disability, where people are running and walking and swimming to raise money for people with disabilities. So I think we have to imagine a new kind of democracy, and it has to be driven by these kind of conversations. I've worked in the state legislature in Massachusetts, so I know sort of politics and that level. Expect people to come up, they just can't afford it. So out of multiple people talking and this kind of mood tone of effect and listening to each other and trying to maybe craft something out of it all, listening to different generations, and then coming up with agendas of one thing to do together and executing them. You might see a shift. I mean, the inclusion at work will represent not only the first or theories to help people with disabilities get jobs. It'll be, as far as I know, the first television show ever produced, directed, edited, and even scored by people with different disabilities or different abilities. So the disability community has never been a community. And a little show, we're hoping to take one step forward. And we need more shows like this Zoom meeting.
Yes.
We need to, this is it, this is democracy instead of the town hall and
how we relate to each other.
We're doing on Zoom.
Yeah, and how we relate to each other.
See, nobody goes to town meetings anymore, but I mean, that's what a town meeting is. You sit there and talk and, say, gotta build a road, let's build a road.
Absolutely.
Go out and build a road. So your generation will, yes.
Well, I think we can go back to FDR and see what he did out of the Depression to reinvigorate American democracy and economics. I think that kind of future we need. I'm very excited that if Biden is elected, that we'll have a Green New Deal, that will start becoming leaders again in climate emissions reduction. We know that climate change is real. Even Fox News doesn't know it's changing. There is this part of America that just doesn't know what's going on. And part
borders,
of it is
and borders are made up.
Right.
That's not
well,
we don't have to abide by that. That's just made up. The war machine, it's a money-making machine. If we see each other as one, if we see each other as mere reflections of each other, if we see our bodies as physical representations or as our avatar, it'll change a lot. Gwen, please speak. I see your hand raised.
Yes, I had to lower it. Well, don't tell me I'm going to forget what I was going to say. You know, I feel like people who are accustomed to living in the city or have always lived in a very populated place are very, very far removed from nature, and they're very far removed from the smell of the soil, and they're very far removed from listening to the breeze blow through the trees. So how can that be accessible? And how can it be accessible if there are people who can't leave the city demographically? And so that is just a living reality, is that there are people in that can't get around, can't, for whatever reason, any reason at all. They just are where they are, and that's where they need to be, and they don't have a choice about it. And so how can it be accessible? Because I think the closer people are to that, the more that they're going to care. Because I was just thinking about it. Somebody was about how hiking ruined everything. And it was like, it's because once you get out there and you're outside for a little while, it's like you come home and it's in the walls, and that's it. And that is very much the way it is for so many. And so those are just some of the thoughts. In terms of like how I feel about how I'm going to feel, you know, either a few weeks from now or tomorrow, I guess, you know, I mean, you know, the trees aren't going to go away, and, you know, the snow's not going to stop, and, you know, the moon is moved through its phases, and, you know, I'm still going to be here. So, at least as far as I can tell right now, and I am here, so, you know, what can I do now? Sometimes I feel like the best way to show somebody's thing is just to be that. And so I just want to say that because it's exciting, and it gets people excited. You know, sometimes you can do something so small, and people say, "Wow, I never even knew that," or, you know, and I like it when people do that for me. You know, that's like the spice of life. And another thing I had a woman who I was reading about, a young lady who was voting for Trump, and she said one of the reasons why is he actually, believe it or not, brought a lot of people who would have not been voting into the voting. The other thing she said about it was that that he's fun. And we're talking about the need for younger leaders. We're talking about the need for new leaders. We're talking about the need for people to sit together like this and listen and share. And I kind of think of how, like, let's sit in a circle and let's talk and let's share. And, you know, just like bringing it back down to earth instead of being way up here and only up here, you know. I would say, you know, the very just people, and, you know, different states have responded in different ways, you know, in terms of like access to higher education, things like that. But I'm going to stop right there. So thanks.
So I'll say this, right? So, Artemis, you mentioned the cult of Trump. So I do believe that people who were blinded for whatever, but a lot of voters are voting for the self-interest. So if you are like low-skilled, you know, blue-collar worker, Trump is doing something to bring manufacturing jobs back to America, right? Whether he's executed or not, you can argue, but he has certainly gone in that direction. So for these voters, he represents hope. So to, like we're talking about fear. So really to get them to move beyond that very narrow self-interest and to see hope, it takes, they have to overcome this fear, right? So for that to happen, the system is to, in a way that, for those people who lost their job to globalization or to automation, to whatever, right? To all these sectors, they need to be a way for them to move forward, to get a job or to get re-educated, to do whatever, or to have some guaranteed security, so they don't vote for someone like Trump just because they think their meal and him.
Stephen, thank you. That was beautiful. And I agree with you that what it is about fear is that fear is a negative perpetuation. Our fears produce more fears. It's like a dialectic of the negative. And what we need from love and hope is not just to be Pollyanna and everything's okay, is to come from love in every decision we make. Where the love is the economy, where the love is the decision making, where the love is the future. When we die, it's about the love that we spread. And I have met you nights, and I'm actually introducing a new crypto security called Love Coins. And what Love Coins do,
love that name.
It equalizes relationships. If I give you an hour of my loving attention, you give me an hour of your loving attention. It may be different. You might help me with my tenants, I help you with your roof. But we exchange not hierarchy of value, love value. That means no one's paid more or less for it if they come from love. And that's why an autistic 10-year-old who sings is just as valuable as someone who runs the Federal Reserve. Because it's about what we exchange. Money is just an exchange of value. Imagine a new economy based on love.
I mean, I love this, the sound of it. I'm just curious to see how you see this scale up, to a societal level, right? Where now we are not just exchanging goods or service among people who are who can immediately serve each other, but there's the economy that's scaled out, international, global level, right? How it translates into that scale, right?
I mean, we are seeing alternative. Oh, sorry.
It's a different competition, and so this would scale up person to person. Every relationship. Think of your relationship with Masha's father. For every hour you listen to him, he spends listening to you.
I mean, that might, like you said, Artemis, everyone has a different way of showing love, expressing themselves, of feeling love. So, I mean, alternative forms of exchange are seen all the time in many different forms. For example, I had a friend who needed a place to stay. I had a big closet that could be converted into a room, but it was going to require money and labor. They were willing to do it. Then they got a place to stay. So I think it's thinking outside the money box. I think it's thinking outside of what we're used to and focusing on what's innately essential to our existence as humans. We need social interaction. There's been studies that show that people die earlier if they don't have friends. And then, of course, again, we need those fundamental human needs. So how can we get our needs met, and then how can we spend time less on our survival chores because we're collaborating around them, and more time then, therefore, to problem solve by tapping into our unique gifts. And I feel like so many of us aren't able to do that because we have to make money, we have to do the things that we have to do to pay rent or whatnot, so we don't have as much time to use our gifts and to tap in and channel what is our truth to contribute to problem solving, is my own personal opinion. We have a message from Carlos. Let's recall God's message that one should love everyone, not that one should like everyone, but that one should love everyone, as we are all his creation. Yes, we are all we're all the eyes of the universe. I love it.
Carlos, would you and say a little bit about your spiritual belief? And that's very inspiring what you wrote.
Carlos, you are mute. Carlos, you are muted.
And anyone else who has not had a chance to speak, I would invite anyone who hasn't said a word to just say hello, your name, and what inspires you about this idea of a love economy. Like, what would that look like for you? And if you don't want to talk about that, talk about something else, Tina. What were you going to say, my dear?
Also, we are at 9:50. We are at almost 9:20. I know, Artemis, you mentioned we were all going to be on till midnight, but that your series advertised on Facebook was till 9 p.m. Do you want to mention the timeline?
Yeah, so we're going to, when we leave this call, for anyone who wants to keep this conversation going, we're going to join the Democracy Now! Zoom live link that starts at 9, ends at 12. And in that Zoom, we're going to be talking about the election, how to adopt our country. So that's where I want to go next with all of you. But I also want everyone to feel like I just encourage everyone to speak up, say that's important to do.
I just wanted to say one thing, Artemis. Unless you know differently, I don't think there's a Zoom call for Democracy Now! Let's just go and I thought we'd do a call at Point Wanted, and we would watch the results on Democracy Now! We could all tune into that on our computers while we all stayed on this call. As far as I know, Democracy Now!
Okay, but that's true that we'll stay here until people go away. I think the call is over when we leave. And if you want to leave, go. Good night. I love you. And if you want to stay, keep talking and listening and inspiring each other. And so I'll be here noon 12 tonight, even if I'm just talking to myself. So let's carry on.
All right.
Patrick, I want you to the ranked voting conversation you inspired last night, and what does it mean to you in terms of democratizing our democracy? I think that's going to pass quite strongly.
Yeah.
What would that mean?
Well, I'm very excited by it. I mean, it's a step right direction. We're moving towards having not two parties, but many parties. Basically, if a bunch of candidates and one candidate is not winning, they give their votes to somebody else. So you won't have a situation where a rainbow party or party person is taking votes from the main Democrat. Those people would be giving their votes to the Democrat, and the Democrat would win over the Republican, because so many times the Democrat hasn't won because of an independent candidate. So it's very good news. It also, ranked choice voting means that because you're to win over other candidates' votes, that you have to campaign positively. You can't campaign negatively will mean a negative result for you. So it really changes the whole tone of campaigning, which is very exciting. Maine in doing this election, Maine is deciding the presidency through ranked choice voting, which is very exciting for the first time. In 2016, they were just doing ranked choice voting for congressional and I believe Senate races. So it's a wonderful step. I mean, there are many steps in the whole voting scene that we need to take, getting big money out, gerrymandering, voter suppression we have to work on. Voting is really a great step. And I hope it passes in Massachusetts. It looks like it is going to pass in Massachusetts.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. It is really exciting to see Maine and Massachusetts carry the torch towards a new kind of election.
I don't know if anyone knows anything about, but I'm interested in, I don't know much about the kind of, this, about the winner take all aspect of our vote system. And I think that's a big factor, and how that would change, or maybe a more parliamentary way of ruling, if anyone had any information about that with other countries, or I would love to hear about that.
Patrick sadly forgot his computer here, and his old computer makes an enormous amount of noise. So thank you for muting your computer. But I think that's a brilliant question, and I think the real inspiration for me is the Vermont meeting. How do we create a new democracy where every community really makes decisions on a community basis? Town meeting, in person, talking together. We can do it on Zoom, of course. But every year in the town of Sherborne, we manage a $50 million of our town business together. We spend 3 days going through the numbers. We vote on every article. And then at the end of the day, when I pay my taxes, I'm resentful. I have to say, this is what it costs to live in Sherborne. Take it or leave it. Live somewhere else. And that's what I think is missing, is even if you look at socialism, it is a form, in the way it's been expressed since the Bolshevik Revolution, as a form of dictatorship. I know better for you, the dictator of the proletariat. And you look at Cuba, the destruction that happened because of the dictatorship of so many years of Fidel. But within the Cuban story, there are all these stories of resilience and of beauty and of democracy at the community level. And what I want to look at through all the Cold War lenses is, how do we make democracy, and democracy as a spiritual act, not just political, relevant in the world we live in?
Well, just sorry. Well, we have to. I think it starts with the schools and actually modeling these activities. So, civics has fallen very far down in the many school districts. There's new forms being created. The Harvard School of Education and the Safra Center for Ethics at Harvard are working to engage students in civic activities, which can be a dance, it can be a town meeting. So we have to create sort of democratic muscles, where people, young, start to talk to each other and work together. I mean, it isn't as hard as it seems if you can work on budgets. Among adults, I mean, if you're asking 15-year-olds to work on something seriously, or like the Hampshire College model, we have to say that's what we want to do. We want to re-engage civics in schools, and we want to create new forms of it, and we want kids to work at it, and learn from each other. And so I don't think it'll happen overnight, but it could happen over time. And it is that same thing. We have to make America what it must become. So we have to engage a whole generation in these activities. And after a while, they'll look at Fox News and the other combative cable stations and just say, well, that's silly. I don't listen to stuff like that anymore.
Ditto.
Nobody should. What?
I said ditto.
Yeah, so, I mean, it'll just evaporate because conflict is what drives it. They need foils. So, I mean, Tucker Carlson is going after Wall Street. He's going after Sun Valley. I mean, every night has to be another villain. And when you just realize there are no villains here, we have to build a road. Let's figure out how to do that. We have to open the library. I mean, practical things have to get done. And that spurs people to listen and say, okay, in 2 years we want to have a library. It's going to cost so much money. And then we have to do this. So let's all do it. As Artemis said, well, if you don't like it, then you go to another town. But it's kind of a great thing. It's all after multiple reasons. But again, we have these fantastic tools. So instead of asking people who are very overtaxed, carve out an hour to go to a town meeting and sit there and drive back and forth for a mother with 3 kids, for example, how is she going to do that?
And that's an amazing point, Larry. And I feel like this pandemic has shed light on the technology that we have to be able to congregate and communicate and love right here. So, all the inconveniences of driving to the town meeting and not being able to sit there in your pajamas. Well, we can now. So there's nothing stopping us, and it's really encouraging to be on with you all tonight. And with that, I'm going to hop off. I may join later, but it was so incredible to hear all of your perspectives, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be with you all, and thank you.
Thank you.
And no matter what, we won. No matter what, we already won.
Pajamas. I have pajama bottoms on, so I mean,
Yeah, you don't even need to wear pants. It's fine. All right, guys, enjoy.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Larry,